Two different platforms?
How do you mean?
So are you only streaming on YouTube, or are you doing
Yes,
TikTok too?
only on YouTube right now. But then what we usually do is just set up our phones and do TikTok. But I was trying to figure out how I can get the stream key working for TikTok so we could just do both through here. But the problem is, of course, that the format on TikTok is a little bit different. So, ugh.
Yeah, because they're coming out with like some studio thing, and I know once you hit like a certain amount of subs, you can go live in the first place. But then they give you the opportunity to do like live studio, download their software or something. And I tried it, but
Yeah.
it's only for PC. It's not for Mac. They don't have
Pussy.
it out yet.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Exactly.
Well, also,
Exactly,
Joey,
right?
if you want to, you can run the stream in like the background. Just obviously put it like mute or whatever. Because then if somebody chats or wants to ask you questions, you can answer in chat, or you can go, "Hey, this person asked me a question in chat."
Oh,
But
definitely.
if you guys are hanging out in chat right now, obviously we're live. We're here with the wonderful, brilliant Shut Up and Cut and the okay at best.
That's
Hey,
funny.
listen, I live to be average. And so, as we say, guys, all right, everybody, welcome in. Let's go. All right.
Oh, you got
Welcome-
like a little studio
Oh.
thing there. I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
just opened this.
It's just, it's kind of cute. It needs a lot of work, but like I've been too busy with real life to go and make all of this a whole lot prettier. So now it's a simple look.
That's cool. Right on.
This-
Okay,
this
Keegan.
is one of those things where you'll be able to see the A and B version of this like later on. Like this is a thing you'll look at like 2 years from now, and it'll be like, man, do you remember when we had this set up? Anyway, here we go, guys. All right, so here we go. Welcome, all you geniuses, Afflecks, Damons, law books, and complicated maths. We're one with the films. This is the podcast for kissing in the dark in Fenway Park. Now, we're the film hoes, bashing film bros, and going toe-to-toe with these fucking CEOs. But that's another story. As for who we are, well, listen, I'm that spicy little lemon cake with the Harvard levels of debt. And I'm, this cheeky little scholar giving you a holler. It's Movie K-Man the Third. How y'all doing? Y'all doing fine? Y'all doing a good time? You having a good time? Well, fantastic. Thanks for joining us on a Saturday. Unless you're watching this on Spotify, in which, well, have a good day, I suppose. But anyway, listen, with me today is a man who puts the art in Skarsgård, the heart in Harvard, and the will in Williams, and the fear in me. And frankly, that's my buddy Naff over here. That's my co-host. Hey, Naff, how you doing?
I mean, I didn't realize that I scared you so much, but I guess I'll take it. I'll take it.
I mean, listen, that's more just like I think it works for the dynamic. You gotta
Okay.
have a little bit of like fear.
Just a little bit of healthy fear. You're terrified that
Exactly.
our love would be too real.
Listen, it's the same thing with your Asajj Ventress kink, right? You need to have a little bit of like step on me, like
Baby
energy.
boy, I'm gonna say this in no uncertain terms for you right now. Pay attention. I'm not scared of that woman. I am entranced and excited by that woman. And I'm waiting for the day that it happens, okay?
Fair enough. Absolutely.
Do you remember that episode of Clone Wars where this guy walks over and is like, "What's a beautiful, bold babe like you doing in a place like this?" I'm like, that's my line. That's my line.
That's your line? All right. Interesting. Like, I think your line would be more akin to, huh? And anyway,
Mommy.
But anyway, we as much as this conversation would indicate, we are actually not alone. But we are with an editing legend. A blast from my past, a god tier on Premiere. This is the man who is there for all your editing needs and a budding Damon in his own life. It's an honor and a privilege to welcome Shut Up and Cuts Joey DeBlanco to the show. Joey, say hi to the people.
Hi, people. How you guys doing? I'm excited to be here.
Good man.
Absolutely fantastic.
It actually
so
is
great to have you
wild
here, my friend.
the way that things worked out. Obviously, we were saying before, Keegan from like back in the day, and I met him through like TikTok, and like you basically taught me how to edit through your videos. So it's like, it's crazy that to the point where,
awesome.
yeah, like I think we've had a couple of conversations back and forth on some of your videos as well. But I remember actually being like to Keegan at one point, I was like, it'd be cool to have this, but he's like, oh, yeah, I know that guy. And I was like, wait,
like,
what?
Let's just shoot a text.
Yeah, he literally was like, at some point he was like, oh man, it'd be so cool to get this like Shut Up and Cut guy over here. Or I forget who mentioned it, if it was you or me. And it was like, oh, it'd be so cool to get him. I'm like, yeah, well, just let me send him a text. What do you mean send him a text? Oh, we went to college together.
Yeah,
and it's just like, and he's like, what do you
That's
mean?
so funny. I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
So your work is really doing great. So
Yeah.
listen,
But yeah, so
if
go
you
ahead.
guys need to know how good Joey is at teaching, just watch Naf's videos,
I
and
mean,
that
don't do
will
that.
really determine how well Joey can teach. And
That's a good point.
like,
That's a good
What he
point.
really taught me at the start was essentially all of the things that made editing faster for me. I'm still working on the process and the flow and what the voice, I suppose, is that comes through in the edit. But you saved me many, many, many hours there, Joey, with your top and tailing tips. And I was like,
Good.
my God,
Good.
how did I not know about Q and W? Crazy.
yeah,
on.
like
That's
I
the
feel
goal.
like you've done this. You've done the same with me. Like, there's a couple of tips that I would like save on TikTok, and I'm like, I didn't fucking know
Jesus.
that, and just like put it off to the side, and just be like, all right, when I use that, it's gonna be great. And so
Yeah, that bookmarked section.
exactly
Never,
right.
that
I
you
have like a
never really go
special-
back to.
exactly that, like, you know, you're like, oh well, I'll put a little folder aside here, but
Yeah.
like I save a shit ton of videos. I don't think I've gone back to one once. Like but I always am like, save, I'm gonna go back to this, I'm gonna relit, I'm gonna learn, and then it's just like, nope. So
They're there when you need them. They're there when you need them.
exactly. But Joe, you brought Goodwill Hunting today. Now I would love to know,
Yes, I did.
kind of like, obviously, like, we're going into this. Naf hadn't seen it. I've seen it a while ago, and I just want to know kind of why you brought this to us today. Well, actually, before we get to there, Naf, do you want to get into what we're here today to do? Why the fuck we're all here?
Yeah, why the hell not, right?
Give us some context.
Yeah,
well,
come on.
I mean, you're here for One with the Films. We're trying to become one with the films, right? And we do that through the weekly watch list. And for the uninitiated, the weekly watch list is where Kay and I will usually force each other and you to watch one of our personal favorite films with the goal of being introducing somebody else to something new, right? It's always the what's the word? The consistent key of the podcast is that somebody who is on this chat hasn't seen the movie before, right? Like, somebody is getting something new, and hopefully that sort of does the same thing for you guys. And every now and then we'll bring on somebody who has sort of much better taste than us to introduce us to one of their favorite films, and jump on and talk about kind of what makes it special. And the best part about this is that, like, you know, not every conversation needs to be Shawshank Redemption is the best film of all time or something silly like that, or we circle jerk some Nolan films. Like, the idea is what makes this film real and personal and beautiful to you. And that's why we love doing this, because a bunch of nerds just get together, talk about the thing we love. And if you're here, obviously we're so glad to have you with us. And if you're not, well then, I don't really have anything to say to you, I guess. But Joey,
Fair enough.
you picked our film of the week, and if you guys are seeing the title of the episode, you might have an idea of what film that is. It's not so subtle this time as they usually are, but why don't you give us a bit of context on what the film is, Joey, why you chose it?
Yeah, so you guys kind of, Keegan reached out to me, said, "Hey, come on the podcast. Just bring a film with you." And I was like, "All right." So I picked Good Will Hunting. Good God Will Hunting. Is that what that? Good
Yeah.
God. Good
Yes.
God,
Will Hunting.
I love that. Yeah. So I picked Good Will Hunting. I'm a big fan of Matt Damon, big fan of Ben Affleck, and a big fan of Robin Williams too. And so one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this one is I don't really get to talk about movies with a bunch of people on like an intellectual level. A lot of the people that I'm surrounded by every day, family and friends, they're not as much of a film nerd as me. So obviously hopping on this podcast, having an opportunity to do that, I had to take it. But the reason why this one connected with me isn't really because of what's happening in the film, but what happened outside of it. I've always wanted to be a filmmaker, director, you know, right now editor. But for Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, the story behind this film is kind of what I'm in love with. Not the story they made, but the story that they lived to get this thing made. That was something that I was, you know,
That's
really
profound.
attracted to. I loved seeing that. And so, you know, that's kind of why I brought it in.
Absolutely. And again, what a one to do it with. And going off of that, one thing that I know that people might be curious about with us, we're going to be making a fair amount of TikToks on this, but talking about young people going into the industry and talking about things like that. Obviously, SAG just went on strike. Now, WGA has been on strike for months and, you know, been fighting for livable wages. Things such as this, movies like this wouldn't be possible without the idea of like being able to get people to make be able to live middle class lifestyles in the arts. And the thing is, as a podcast, we're very conscious of the fact that we want to help. We want to help in whatever way we can. Thing is, guys, if you couldn't tell by the rousing numbers of our podcast, we don't get paid to do this. Like, we absolutely are doing this like for the two pigeons that decide to, like, you know, have a courtesy listen. And you know, we're really doing this because we enjoy it and we love talking about film, and more importantly, what film means to us and the people that come onto this podcast.
Yeah.
The fact that these stories meant something to us, and of course, that reflects on the people that made it. So for us, we are going to continue to do what we do, but we're going to be talking about the strikes. I myself am striking with a couple of my SAG friends, and so I'll be out there and going in on the picket lines and stuff like that, doing some TikToks from there as well, promoting their cause and everything like that. So I hope that you guys all obviously understand and keep an eye on that. We will be continuing to do the podcast, but we won't be doing things like we won't be talking about Barbie, we won't be talking about Oppenheimer, we won't be doing that over there, even though we will be wearing some sick ass merch probably. That's just unavoidable, but it's like, I mean, how can you not? But nonetheless, but the
I would
one
like to
perk
add to
of
that
this,
as well.
go ahead, and then I'll get to my perk.
Yeah, just this concept that, particularly for me, being somebody who's outside the industry, you know, we all have dreams, but like completely outside, there's this idea that I think is becoming all too real for so many people, that the expectation that writers and actors and directors and all the people that work in the industry are all on like great money. It's like, you know, you're making a show consistently, or you write for a film, or yeah, particularly for I suppose TV is probably the big one right now, that you go, man, like they've got to be getting like huge money for it. And then this kind of like rude awakening of this idea that that's not really the reality, and that people are actually struggling to make ends meet, when you'd be expecting them to be like, you have my dream job. What do you mean you're not making ends meet? So this was a huge realization for me. And Joey, you've got a friend in chat as well. Nicole's reaching out to you.
That's my girlfriend. Hi,
there you
Nicole.
go. She has to show support. It's got to be done.
Yeah.
My
My biggest fan.
Yeah, like it blew my mind. That
Absolutely.
was again, I had no concept of. I was just like, oh yeah, one day I'll be a cool writer and have my dream job, and I'll have all of this money coming through. And it's like, ooh, actually no. And then seeing Samuel L. Jackson's,
not how it is.
seeing Samuel L. Jackson's post the other day on Instagram on his story where he did the percentages. You know, like they're not letting people make because they need this amount of money. The percentages were like they need to give up, I think, 0.1% of the total revenues for the year to be able to make people have, you know, the ability to live a living wage. It's absurd knowing how much money these studios are making and how greedy they continue to be.
Where is that? I'd like to see that. You
Let me
said
see if
Samuel
I
Jackson
can
posted that?
Yeah, I think he put it on his story, so it might be gone by now, but he may have put it on like his Twitter and stuff too.
Someone had to have screenshotted it and posted it
Oh,
on the
for
internet.
sure.
Yeah.
Because I'd be interested in seeing, you know, from his perspective, how the money's split up. That'd definitely be something
I think it was
Oh,
a
yeah.
screenshot from somebody else's tweet that he just shared. So I'll
And
see if I can
it's-
find that and
it's-
send it to you as well, Joey.
Absolutely. And it's one of those things where, guys, I for anybody that listens to this, you probably are not one of these people. I know there's a misconception when you hear how much actors are paid, or you hear these things there, like you hear people like Robert Downey Jr. making insane amounts of money, things like that on projects. This is not what these strikes are about. These strikes are about the minimum, about the people that are trying to make a middle class lifestyle. These are your background actors, your the person who has one line in the coffee shop,
the 9-to-5ers of the industry.
the 9-to-5ers doing this, that are being asked to have their likeness copied, and then just basically that the studios can have it in perpetuity. Like just it's insane what's being asked. And like, obviously we're not going to make this about us. We want to make this about everybody there, but just wanted everybody to know, if anybody had any curiosity, where our stance was, this is it. And so with that being said, we're going to talk about a film that actually, surprisingly, doesn't have to do with these pieces of shit. It has to do with a different piece of shit who actually produced it. But nonetheless, this was an incredible feat of a film. Like, as Joey said, as a filmmaker, this truly was one of those films that, for me, really did change at least my perspective on how films were made when I heard about this was the case. it's something that continues to inspire me as a filmmaker in your same in the same way that it did for you, Joey, where I felt like, okay, wait a minute. So these guys just wrote a script when they were around my age and somehow ended up meeting the right connections to get to Robin Williams, who took it to these people who got it there, got the star power. If they can do it, so can I.
Mm.
And like it kind of acts as this incredible I don't know, just this incredible inspiring tale for filmmakers and everything with that. So going off of that, Naf, do you have some fun facts for us, right?
Yeah, absolutely, I do. And they are pretty fun, if I do say so myself.
Oh, okay.
Not really. They're
We'll
just
see.
they're just the usual.
We'll
But
see.
this grassroots film was written by and starring Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, and it was directed by Gus Van Sant and released in 1998, 3 years after I was born. This film was the breakout for the writer leads, after bringing home a $225 million in the box office from a production budget of merely $10 million. So huge. It has an 8.3 out of 10 on IMDb from over 1 million reviews. Obviously, a lot of people have seen the film. And has a Letterboxd score of 4.3 out of 5 from 740,000 reviews. It's number 82 on IMDb's top-rated films list and saw 9 Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture, Lead Actor, Supporting Actress, Director, Editing, Original Song, Score, Writing, and Supporting Actor, winning the last 2.
About all the
Damon and
components
Affleck.
that make up a movie, dude. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like, mental. But the last 2 it won. So Matt Damon and Ben Affleck won Best Original Screenplay. And what's his name? Robin Williams, won Best Supporting Actor. The win made Ben Affleck, who was 25 at the time, the youngest winner ever for an Academy Award. And at the exact same time made Matt Damon, who was 27, the second youngest. Getting the film made was not an easy feat for the unknown Damon and Affleck duo, and they had to shop it around from studio to studio, finally getting it bought by Miramax. As per usual with any Robin Williams films, it features many ad-libbed lines and moments from himself, including the last line of the film, which Matt Damon regards as his best addition. It's must-see cinema for any filmmaker. As we just discussed, its mere existence is a miracle. And any other film lovers, of course, it's unabashedly and indisputably a classic, which I saw for the first time this year. Don't at me.
and going with that, obviously we have. Let's just talk about for me, this film. My mom showed me when I was way too young to understand what the fuck was going on. I heard hunting, and I thought action was involved.
Mm-hmm.
There's not, and so I was deeply disappointed as a child. But there were stuff that always stuck out to me. Like one of the things that I always loved, the Robin Williams monologue on the park bench, always as a kid stuck out to me. And it continued to be something throughout my life I would go back to. And his work in this film just continues to inspire me. And when I think about films that I look to as a creator now, this is still one of them that I will regularly look at as like, there's just something about this film that the questions that it asks and the situations it forces you to consider are so brilliant. And it's one of those things where it's like, it's just so mature that you would have assumed these guys had life experience out the wazoo, right? Like you would have experienced, this is like some guy writing it from Robin Williams's character's age, you know, like he like being the people that actually have been to the Sistine Chapel and, you know, doing this shit. But no, it's these fucking 25-year-olds over here writing about like some of the like dropping bars about life.
Yeah, some of the most profound shit you've ever heard on screen.
And you're just like, fuck you, I guess.
Yeah.
And then finding out even some of my favorite things about hearing the idea of so many people like in the film, even like you hearing that Matt Damon to some degree is just this smart, that like a lot of this stuff, like he actually went to goddamn Harvard, I believe. And it's like this thing of like, we don't give you enough credit that you're actually like a really smart guy to even put this shit down on paper. I'm like, Now, granted, I assume all of it's correct. I could be fucking wrong, but like, you know, it's one of those things where this film just, it always stuck out to me as something that always just kind of like resonated with me. And it was Nav. At some point, it was one of those films that like I kept telling you, I'm like, buddy, you're gonna love this film. You're gonna love this film. You need to watch this movie. Like, it's just a total you film. And when you were out here, we actually sat down and watched it.
Yeah. And like
And
my
so,
copy is still
yeah.
sealed in the wrapper. See, like
Like that's how good of a purchase that's been.
I mean, it only
That's
cost me
funny.
$9.98. So
Money well spent.
yeah.
And so with that said, Naf, tell me your impressions of this film.
Well, I think that I don't know why, but I did have like a concept in mind of what this film was like going to be, and obviously it was completely like wrong. Like I think the name, like I was like I didn't realize that, you know, the main character's name was Will Hunting. I thought that it was a couple of people that were hunting for goodwill, and I was like, okay, we're just looking for a shop where we can thrift some stuff, I guess. No, but I was just like, I don't know, like I don't even know what to expect from this. I don't know. I expected like a big emotional moment where I kind of thought that he would become really close with his therapist, with Robin Williams, and then maybe like it would be revealed that like Robin Williams does something or like took his own life or something like that, to the point that that kind of is the big pinnacle. Like, oh my god, like that's kind of where I expected it to go, and it wasn't like that at all. And it is yeah, like really, really beautiful and really profound, and again, yeah, really impressive. Because it does have that kind of feel of something that was put together by people that have been around for much longer than these guys were. Like it's really, really impressive.
And so yeah, like going into it, like I know that and so Joe, like when did you first see this movie?
Oh shit. Honestly, it wasn't too long ago. I think it was sometime in college. I think it was
Mhm.
sometime freshman sophomore year was when I watched it for the first time, and after I watched it, I had to watch it again.
Oh
So it
yeah.
wasn't like you know, you just watch it once and then I was like, hold on. The very next day I watched it again. I was like, what did I actually just watch? So I had to watch it again. So I think it was sometime but I think it was sometime, you know, freshman year of college.
Oh, understandably. And it's one of those films that just does merit those rewatches.
I'm
You know what I
already
mean?
feeling
Like
a rewatch. Like I'm like, yeah, I want to see it again.
it's also just it's one of those films that also just takes you through the right amount of the emotional spectrum.
Yeah.
You know, like it makes you cry for like sad, but it also makes you cry for like inspired.
Mm.
You also have the drama, but it also makes you laugh. And it's like it's just it doesn't let you sit in the drama too much. It's just it's a very much a dramedy in my eyes. Like it's this
Oh
kind
yeah.
of insane film that like it really just hits all the notes. It's no wonder they won for writing, because it's just there is
I've got a
even now I'm trying to put it's hard pressed to think of another film that's really like this one. You know, sure there's stuff that's kind of in a similar vein, but I'm like there's just something so
yeah.
special about this.
Well, I want to add to that that our main character Will Hunting deflects a lot of his pain through like humor and like, you know, like basically just being an asshole all the time. And somehow I feel like the film does that too. I don't know if that sounds like really like cringe to say that, but
Yeah.
like there's this concept like you're watching the film and I feel like it's taking the piss sometimes with some of the things that it's doing or some of the ways that the characters are acting. You're just kind of like what are we hiding behind here? I feel like I'm Robin Williams and I'm looking at the film and I'm like, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. Just waiting for the film to cry and hug me, and I'm like, I got it.
Yeah, like you're absolutely right. Like the film kind of like does the whole thing of it's going to lure you in with almost a false sense of security a little bit, like kind of going like, oh yeah, laugh it out a bit, and then all of a sudden it just hits you with a gut punch scene. Like it'll do shit like that where I think ultimately what I love about this film is it does ask the question, when you look at geniuses in history, right? I think we always kind of similar to how I think Shakespeare is improperly taught in high school, which is we're looking at Shakespeare as oh, this great writing. Oh, look at this. This is incredible work. When Shakespeare wrote his plays for the fucking masses, he wrote this for the people in the streets. Romeo and Juliet has like 3 sex jokes in the first 5 minutes. Like, it's the thing. It's like when you really realize what was happening, it's like it's very much this. It's the same thing with geniuses. Like, a lot of these people were just obscurity working these jobs, but just were brilliant and then ended up becoming physicists or things like that, but they came from nothing. And it's like a lot of these things there. And that's what I think that the film starts you off with, this really interesting question of, you know, this kid who's clearly brilliant, who's able to solve these questions, but he doesn't take the credit. Why is he the janitor at this school and he's not actually in it?
Yeah.
And it's just, it sets you up with this just interesting dichotomy of this guy who's so brilliant, who's just going drinking out with his buddies every night. Like, what it's this great character that makes you innately ask so many questions. And I don't know how you guys feel about that, but I kind of want to know, like, because before we even get to obviously the late great Robin Williams's performance in this, which I think is ultimately his best performance besides the genie, it's like this. I want to know what you guys felt like, obviously, with the characters in this film, especially good, like Will. I want to know, Joey, like, is this a character that kind of like resonates with you, or are there things that you find interesting about the dynamic there? I just want to know with your guys' perspective on this film,
Yeah, I
with
think
those aspects.
one of the main reasons I do like this is just because the main character, everybody's going to connect with the main character naturally, right? Especially as a male, especially, you know, wanting to do something with their lives. I think it's really easy to connect to him. And I think one of the things that I did, you know, I was afraid, you know, if you look at the time period when I watched it, why I liked it so much, I was a freshman in college. I was trying to make friends, and to see, you know, this guy with some friends, I was like, you know, that's kind of badass. Oh, look, he took a punch for him. Oh, look, he's standing up for him. You know, it's some easy things for me to connect with, and especially that fucking scene was so brilliant when he's in the bar, he's hitting on the chick, and the dude comes up, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I remember there was it was a surveys course," and you know, Will comes in and he stands up for him. He's like, "Yeah, page 92. Yeah, you're gonna cite the whole fucking thing." One of the best scenes.
Yeah.
And the reason is, you know, I'd want a friend like that. You know, it's it's very quick. It's a very easy, you know, analyze for me, because I'm like, dude, that's exactly, I want friends like that who just kind of step up, who show up, you know, and at the same time, you know, that's kind of the friend that I want to be. And so it's really easy to connect, right? And
Absolutely.
I think that's one of the reasons I like this so much, is because, you know, the crew in the movie, the camaraderie, you know, the friendship, it's tight. You know, it's a tight bond, so tight that he pushes him away. You know, hey, what the fuck are you still doing here? The scene where they're on the car in the parking lot, and he's like, dude, just get out of here. I don't know what you're doing. You know, I think some
think that
really
is-
easy pieces to connect with. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna add that because I was thinking about that scene as you were talking about that, because I feel like, again, as you watch the film, like somehow you feel like a part of it, because in the same vein that you see this person who is brilliant destroying their life, there's a frustration there where you kind of want to shake him and slap him and go, look, I do actually love you as a character, like you're a great character, but at the same time, like, you deserve better. And to have one of the characters, you know, Ben Affleck's character, come in and actually say that to him was like, oh, finally, somebody said it. And of course, like we said, that's kind of the mark of, it's almost like he's using his friends to kind of disconnect from the world, you know, like I can just kind of go here and drink and fight people and be like a dick.
He's letting the weight. He's like, fuck it, yeah. Like he's
Yeah.
letting the weight sit.
And it's like, you know, it's that idea that like your good friends are going to kind of like just hear you out when you're complaining about something, like, oh, let's say I fucked up and I go to Keegan and I'm like, cool, here's all the ways that I fucked up. And he's like, yeah, nah, they screwed you over, man. Like, you know, the world's against you. Like, it's all for you. But it's like the real friend is the person who actually comes back and goes, hey, I love you. You're off base here. There's actually change that you need to do this.
Here's
and
the
this.
reality.
Yeah, and it's
That's
like,
what he's saying. He's
to
giving
be
you a
able to
reality
do that from a brother, to be able to come in. That's kind of that switch moment between that and obviously with Robin Williams and stuff. Like this guy actually, for the first time in his life, who, out of fear of doing things that he has no control over, like, for example, a relationship or a big job or going into school, and he's really smart, but maybe he'll fail, and like a lot of it comes from fear, right? And for the first time, somebody's basically called him out on that and gone like, it's okay to be scared, but like, essentially, oh well is better than what if. Yeah, like let's.
Yeah, like it's the thing of going, and I think that this film is very mature in a lot of ways, because I even heard some people talking about the concept of the scene with Matt Damon and Affleck, which is obviously one of the famous scenes of the film. And like that one is one where I've heard people kind of make fun of that, being like, well, that's an asshole friend. That's basically like the best part of my day is the minutes when I think that you just left.
It's
like that's
though.
kind of an asshole thing. But the thing is, it's like, but you don't understand what that friend is trying to say. Is the thing is, and I had friends like this when I left Arizona to come out to LA to pursue film, was I had friends tell me, and I even had my uncle tell me, who like had a beautiful thing that he said to me, was he reminded me of that scene, and he was like, here's the thing. What that scene represents is the idea of like the true friends that are like, hey, listen, man, I love hanging out with you. I love it every day, every goddamn day. I love being able to hang out with you and enjoy this. But the thing is, you have something that any one of us would kill to have. Like I love his line where he's like, because I'll wake up tomorrow and I'll be 40. And that's fine. Like, that's just such a good, concise line of like, that's exactly. And he's like, listen, that's just my life. That's how I feel. But you have a winning ticket. You have something that any of us would kill to have. And you're too scared to take that leap. And that's why it's like, as your friend, I just want to see you succeed, man. I just don't, if you're not going to do this, just don't let it be out of fear. Like, Joe, I know kind of like even going to our relationship outside of here, like where it's like, it's kind of like film, right? Like all of us get into that situation where it's a field of unknowns. You have to be a little insane to pursue a career in the film industry. You have to have a little bit of the either ignorance or dumbassery to just simply be able to go, I guess I'm going to do it,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
but it takes those people that believe in you and push you to go, if you don't do this, like, the world will be lesser for you having not done it. And I think that that's a beautiful thing that this film really nails.
Yeah. Kenny added in chat, I still say the best scene out of this film is the improv with Matt and Robin.
Oh, that is a good one. That is a really good one. Like that one is like, I do think it's funny because did you actually know, like I ended up reading what the actual scripted lines were.
Oh, really? I'd love to hear that.
Yeah. The one of, I think it was outstanding screenplays. Sometimes they'll do this cool thing of like showing the actual script versus what was on screen. Joe, you know the whole thing about Robin Williams doing his improv scene in the therapist room, right?
I know a little bit of it, but go ahead. Break it down. Give context to the new people.
I'll do that. Absolutely. This is where my hyperfixation comes in. Can't remember my social security number, but I can tell you this shit. And basically what happens is they're having this scene where he's basically trying to convey to Will about the idea that like it's the imperfections in people that we remember, not their perfections. That like it's the little things that like that are there. And in the script it was something like essentially she would always sleep through her alarms. She would always something like that, where it was like essentially it was like every time she would wake up and I just wouldn't have the heart to like turn it off for her or things like that, and she would just always sleep through it every goddamn day. And like, which also same. And but what Robin Williams on the day ended up doing was just like they're in the middle of it, and he just goes, my wife used to fart in her sleep. And just goes like, and just started doing this whole riff about it. And the idea was that like, my favorite thing about it is he's just laughing about like, but the funny thing about it is the laughter that Matt Damon has in the scene is genuine because he did not know that was coming. But the best part about it is you'll see the camera bounce up and down a little bit. Because that's
in the actual movie?
In the actual film, that's the cameraman, the operator is laughing. Like
You
it's
told
just
me this
ever
as
so
we were watching it. We
slightly.
could see it.
You'll see it just like up and down just a little bit. And like he's like, yeah, like one time it was so loud it even woke the dog up. And it's like and then you can even hear it a little bit like Matt Damon like trying to go along with Robin Williams's improv where he's like she'd wake up and she's like, oh, what was that, you? And then he's like, so she woke herself up too. Like that's how you're like it's just when you're going off on like a tangent and you're just seeing him laugh, and then he goes into what was the scripted part, which was, oh, she's been dead 15 years, like she's been dead 5 years, Will, and that's the shit I remember. Oh, like, and it just goes into that stuff, and it's such a beautiful scene. But that's like, again, also the golden stuff of like Robin Williams's improv, where it's just like that man's mind knew that works so well because it's a better scene.
Yeah.
It's a better scene.
And I like that it's improv, not in the way of like for example, like you watch a film like Deadpool and you know that half of the dialogue is, improv and it's just funny, Ryan Reynolds just riffing shit off the top of his head. But the fact that Robin Williams is able to take a scene like that, add something that is fucking hilarious, but also, emphasizes and improves upon the original material, and what's the word? Like adds to it, as opposed to just, oh, we made it funnier. It's like, it's really emphasizing this point that we forget, we love people's imperfections, right? Like at the end of the day,
it adds to
perfect
the like
people-
narrative value of the story.
yeah, and perfect
Yes.
people are boring. They don't make for good drama, like you don't watch rom-coms about people with secure attachment styles, They gotta be toxic or it's not fucking good. I'm sorry. I'm watching Normal People right now with Paul Mescal and Daisy Edgar Jones, and that is from Kit's recommendation, Amelia Place. If you guys are listening, definitely follow them. But it is the most frustrating thing ever because you have these two characters that are so beautiful that you watch and you go, they're meant to be together, but they keep fucking it up because neither one of them is taking the time to, do the work and go, we're going to figure it out. Always one of them does something stupid or they don't communicate well, and you're just like, this is a great drama. And it feels, again, very realistic because it doesn't feel like, like they're going to get through it. It's like in real life, love is a lie.
Keegan, you said you read the original script for this scene that we were both talking about, his monologue. What was the original intention? Do you remember what the scene intended to do?
The scene was, if I'm remembering correctly, the idea was that the scene was basically kind of the same idea was there, which was like, what if the concept of it still being like, what if she's not perfect? What if I'm not perfect? And basically the main thing that was improv was just Robin Williams kind of going, instead of, it was like he was always supposed to give a little story about his wife. He was always supposed to kind of share with Matt Damon, hey, here, like basically, I believe, again, if I'm not mistaken, what happened was he was supposed to share that his wife always slept through her alarms, that he would always have to get up and go and turn her alarms off.
Oh,
like,
and that was the original script.
That was the original lines, was supposed to be that story.
And then when his wife farts in his sleep, that's the
change. And then the same thing of always, it was always like in the script, it was always, she's been dead 5 years and that's the shit I remember, or something like that, like something to the effect of that. And the rest was all scripted. Like the rest of it being like, and I'll tell you what, sport, this girl you're looking at, she ain't perfect either. Like that whole thing, all scripted. Pay your writers.
So it was only a small part that was actually improv.
Yeah.
Yes, but it was
changed the entire scene.
Exactly, but it changed the dynamic of like what also I think was also beautiful about that is it gives Will this sense of you're seeing Will laughing with this guy. It changes this whole thing from being like, oh, that's kind of a thoughtful story to being like, he's actually cracking Will up.
It feels
like
real.
Will is actually starting to let his guard down a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like, it really has an effective way of being like, we're starting to see this budgeting, like this, like, blooming relationship that these guys are having. And it's starting to show that there's kind of this thing. And then you have the great line, which is, do you ever think about getting remarried? And then it's the thing about being like, my wife's dead, hence the term remarried. She's dead.
Oh my God, I love that part. It just
And then
it puts like it puts a boundary right there. Yeah, that's a. I think,
and
and that's
then
halfway through the film too. So I know I'm cutting you off. Go
yeah,
ahead.
no, you're absolutely right. That's what we do here. That's like, but like, as you're saying, and it's like it's right there in the film where also, and then it also does a great thing because it mirrors their two characters. It's why this film works. Robin Williams is not the perfect mentor. Robin Williams is the guy who's broken in the ways Will's not, and Will's broken in the way
I
he's
just made
not.
it like that.
It's two people that need each other.
Yeah.
Because Robin Williams learns as much from Will as Will learns from him. Like that's one thing that I think people that try to emulate this story forget is that Robin Williams starts off with the idea of like, I'm never going to go put myself back out there. I'm never going to be doing this. My wife died. That's it. That's the end of story. And then it's like, but by the end of it, he's starting to put himself back out there. And like that is such an interesting thing. It's a subtle thing with his character, but it shows that he listens to Will just as much. And one of my favorite things is in that scene, he starts off at the beginning of being like, you know, he's like, I think Will says something like, what if she isn't this? Or like, what if she like, you know, goes and fucks some other guy? And then Robin Williams says something like, oh, you know, I think that's a great philosophy, Will. That way you can go your entire life without really getting to know anybody. And like, and then, but then at the very end, he's like, he does the whole, my wife's dead. And then Will goes, well, I think that's an excellent philosophy, Sean. That way you can just, you know, go through life without really getting to know anyone. And it's just this perfect button on the scene where you realize that they both are like, and as you're saying, it's right in that middle part of the film where you realize they're both at a similar place in life for different reasons.
And I think that across kind of any story that you're trying to tell, even if you think about kind of the simple, just, you know, good versus evil stories that we get through, like, you know, MCU and Star Wars, those kind of things, like, I feel like at its core, to tell something that actually feels impactful, like your villain has to learn from your protagonist and vice versa, like that's, and again, obviously, like, you know, Sean here isn't a villain, and Kenny says that Robin and Will are the best master and apprentice in Star Wars canon. Prove me wrong. Which I mean, I see it, yeah, like, but you're absolutely right.
That's going to the question of like, you know, people that would be Jedi in a film, like, you know, people that from non-Star Wars films that could be Jedi. Robin Williams in this movie, like, you know, like that's honestly probably true.
Well,
but
it's
to your
like,
point, go ahead.
To Kenny's point as well, like that is a big thing as well. I mean, you look at the dynamics of, if we talk about Star Wars, for example, and no, don't worry, I'm not going to do it, Keegan. Actually, you know, I am. So if you look at the best master and apprentice dynamics, particularly in The Last Jedi, you've got somebody like Luke Skywalker who is completely given up. You know, he's broken. Nothing's happening there. Rey comes, and through Rey pushing through and trying to break him and having a bit of back and forth there, it shows Luke that there is more to him than just being the, you know, it's like he looks at this as pressure. And it's kind of teaching him to reframe that, like, he has this opportunity to bring hope to the galaxy. Like, it's not his job, it's like something that he gets to do. And that's beautiful that he's able to reframe that and turn around from there. Obviously, vice versa, you've got Rey, who learns a lot from Luke about, you know, what the reality of the Force is and the Jedi and all of these things that she can take away and learn from moving forward. So I think that Kenny's right. I think it is a great master and apprentice dynamic. And I think it very much reminds me more of like a Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan kind of vibe than a
for sure,
than a Luke and Rey. But we gotta make the connection. It's got to be done.
Absolutely. And Joe, like, from your perspective with it, another iconic scene in this film, which I think is absolutely one of the best scenes, I mean, arguably one of the best monologues in all of history, is the scene on the park bench. The scene where
we were talking about that earlier.
Yeah, and so I'm curious to know kind of your feelings. Obviously, Robin Williams' character won his Best Supporting Actor like win, which completely deserved after being nominated for, I believe, Good Morning Vietnam and Dead Poet Society. This is his first win, and
I haven't seen the other two.
Oh my God, we gotta watch Dead Poets and Good Morning. Both those are very good. It just goes to showing the powerhouse of Robin Williams. But I'm curious with your opinion, Joe, on the idea of when you're watching this movie and you get to that scene, you want to talk about, like, again, the fucking uh how can you have conflict through dialogue, right? Like, a lot of people always do the show don't tell, but then I look at scenes like this and I'm like, man, you just told it all. Like, and it worked so much better than if you were trying to show this shit. Like, so I'm curious to know your thoughts on that park bench scene.
Well, I mean, if you look at it from, a filmmaker's, perspective, I mean, it's all acting, right? But what is acting? I think it's just feeling. For the first time, we're able to put our wall down because, we're seeing this world through Will's eyes, obviously.
Mhm.
And so this is the first time we're like, God, Will, come on, put your wall down. Come on.
Yeah, come on,
And
come on.
so, if I remember right, we just spend a lot of time watching and listening, which what converts to feeling.
Oh yeah.
For the park bench scene, and not even not the feeling for the scene, but feeling for the character,
Oh,
and so as Robin kind of opens up the gates, we as the audience start to accept it, but the character still, I think around this point in the film, it's still relatively early, like right before the halfway mark.
Yeah.
But from the filmmaker's perspective, that's like the textbook definition of
Yeah.
acting, to get that feeling, to feel what Robin's feeling, and so for the first time, I think as the audience, we get to step out of Will's shoes and jump into Robin's, from the mentor's perspective. And that's when, what you said kind of comes into play. We realize, he's not perfect.
Yeah.
He's not, the perfect mentor, but he's good enough. He's just
what this
good
guy
enough.
needs.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think, when I watch that scene, it's really easy for the audience to feel that, to feel what Robin's feeling, because it's a tell, don't show. It's a tell
Yeah.
to feel type, and so I wouldn't use the show don't tell here.
Yeah.
Because like you said, it is a tell all, but the tell all gets you to feel, just because Robin's so fucking genius.
He's
at
so
acting.
good.
Yeah, and I think, I guess that's how I feel about it, is for the first time we finally get to feel what he's feeling.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And I think, like, going off of that, you have that moment of it's because it's also contrasted with the scene that happened right before it, right? Like, you have kind of the inciting incident, which is the first time these two guys meet, right? Like, the first time they're having that moment, which is also one of the great conflict scenes. Because, like, it's like, for any writer out there, it's like watching this scene and watching how they are trying to do this. Like, it's a game of tactics. It's a game of, like, Will is deflecting, but he's like looking, it's like, I've read your books, I've done this, I'm gonna demean you, I'm gonna do this thing there. Exactly. It's psychological chess. And it's that thing of going, like, they're fighting each other in ways of him being like, like him being like, oh, how much you bench? And it's like, how much you bench? Like 385. What do you bench? And it's just that perfect, like, fuck you without, like, saying it, like, and it's just like, but then it's so great because it leads up to, you see Will find that button, which is like, maybe you married the wrong woman, and it's like, watch it, Chief. And you realize it's like, oh, Will's going to go all in on that.
Yeah,
blunder. And then it's that, but the thing is, it's like, again, as Naf pointed out earlier, it's like, Will is always trying to push people away, trying to get that moment of, like, fuck off, you're going to leave me anyway. Like, let's just, rip the Band-Aid off right here.
I remember watching something with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, some interview, and they were talking about how they tried to make the script very, have a little, what's the malleable? Is that what where it can be placed in any actor, with any street cred could get placed in that. And they said they wrote, I think it was this scene specifically to get, as a marketing scheme, to get a higher end actor in, to attract that higher end actor, so they could get the film made. And I think this was one of the, and obviously it worked. He won an award for this. There's no other scene in this movie where he did. It was this scene that won him. Won him the award. But I think I remember hearing something about that, which kind of goes back to the writing. You can't really have great acting without great writing.
Absolutely. I heard Bryan Cranston say something once that I do agree with, which is an actor, he said, I believe that as an actor, I think I can make writing one letter grade better. That's it. I cannot make a C-level script an A-level script. I can make it a B-level,
I love that.
but I can't make it an A. So it's like a thing of if it's a D, I can make it a C, but I can't do much from there. And I'm like, I
That's interesting.
agree.
I like that.
I agree with that, because then if you have an A writing, then it's a moment of, oh, I just hope I do this writing justice.
Do it justice. Yeah.
Like that's how at least Bryan Cranston always put it, and I feel like that's the case with a film like this. And I remember hearing the same interview that you're talking about, where it was like Matt Damon and Affleck are like, they were trying to take the approach that Tarantino did with Reservoir Dogs, which was Tarantino went after Harvey Keitel for Reservoir Dogs. He wrote that part specifically for Harvey Keitel, and he ended up getting Harvey on board. And once Harvey Keitel actually was on board, he was able to kind of get the movie to get made. And so they were trying to do the same thing with this role, where they were like, if we can write something that we can get somebody on board, then they'll be able to take a chance on unknowns. It's funny, like a mutual friend of ours, Ben Ashby, him and I are writing something similar, where we're trying to take the approach of this film of being like, we want to act in it with a friend of ours, but we need somebody else. We need to write a part that's good enough for someone else to get on board, that they can have the star power, and they'll take a chance on us.
And that's just a business move. That's just a business move, And I think there's something
you gotta sell
to
it.
that. Yeah, but no, I think my opinion on this scene is it worked. The acting was fucking brilliant. I think the script writing is kind of what drove this scene, obviously, to even get the attention in the first place, to get the attention of the the A-list actors, to even get the scene. So I'm just thankful it got made.
Yeah, right? Like, it's one of those scenes that you look at and it's just like, I am so glad that other people saw this. Like, that other people know this exists and that it actually happened. We got it. It actually was this whole thing. And, another thing that, like, with this film that I feel is underrated in the way that it's portrayed is Stellan Skarsgård in this movie. Like, he plays, the guy who is the one who gets Matt Damon out of jail and is the one who gets him in touch with Sean in the first place. And Stellan has this moment
the professor.
The professor. And he's so good in this movie as the kind of quasi antagonist. Like, he does it, but he does it in a way where what I love about it is this is where I talk about I get so mad at this script at some points, because I'm like, you're so good, fuck you. Like, just being like, how did you also introduce a subplot where Robin Williams and this guy have beef? And I want to see that story just as much as I want to see this story,
Dude, but that actually brings something up. One of the things in the beginning was when Matt, the first time these guys collide, first line he says to him is "fuck you."
Yeah.
First line he says to him is "fuck you," which then it lays a little bit of a motif, because Robin Williams is kind of in the same boat, like the enemy of my enemy is my friend type of deal.
Yeah.
Also, so that's funny. That kind of just clicked for me after you said that.
And it's why you almost saw the reason that, like, Stellan Skarsgård almost went to Robin Williams. It's almost like, well, listen, I know the other guy that tells me to fuck off.
You don't like me either.
Like, exactly. So I need somebody who doesn't like me either. And it's this moment of him being like, because also you look at Stellan Skarsgård, who's like, I can't do, like, he has a line in this film that I thought about, like, even as a kid when I watched this movie, I was like, I thought about it a lot, which was this idea where he's like, he's like, I'm like, Will's like, I'm sorry that you don't understand this math. I really am, because I wouldn't have to sit around and watch you fuck it up all the time. Like, like, he's like, do you understand how easy this is for me? Do you understand? This is a fucking joke.
Oh, such a good scene.
Like, and he's having that moment, but then Stellan, after he like burns the paper and Stellan puts it there, and he has that moment where he just looks at Will and he's like, you know what? I'm sorry too. I'm sorry that there are days where I wish I never even met you, because then I wouldn't have to know that someone like you exists.
Mm.
I wouldn't
how I
have
feel
to
about
go
you,
over
Keegan.
here. No, fair enough. And like, you know, it's just, and then like you say to me, and I wouldn't have to watch you throw it all away, and you know, just going on the goddamn podcast, like going, but like, I love that scene where he's like, like, it keeps him up at night that there is this guy who could solve a lot of problems,
And
but
doesn't.
he's gonna have to watch him throw it all away.
Yeah, it's the Peter Parker conundrum.
But then even it's contrasted again. This is how good this script is. It's then contrasted with the scene that Robin Williams and him have at the bar, where they're talking about the guy like who you know, cured polio, and talking about how, like, you know, what if this guy was out, you know, just getting drunk with his buddies on the weekends, and then, you know, Robin Williams is like, but why do you like, it's like, you know, what, like, he's like, why do you think he hangs out with those guys? Because any one of them would take a bat to your head if he asked them to. Like, that's why, like, because he knows they're not going to leave him. Do you understand that? And he's like trying to get it through Stellan's head that it's like, it's not about him. And it's even the concept that, like, he talks about how there's a guy who, you know, had brilliant mathematics, you know, he was great at this. And then he asks him, you know, like, who it was. And it's like, it was the Unabomber. The Unabomber, like, was great at all this shit. It's like, this is not, like, get your head out of this idea. Like, we got to make sure that this kid is going to be fine. It's not just about him, like, you know, being good at mathematics.
Yeah.
It's like, he has to have a life. Like, he has to be okay.
It's this idea of a couple of things that I want to touch on there, because I think that's really beautiful. And one of them is there's this concept of everybody feeling constantly like they should be striving towards, like, their potential and, like, reaching their potential all the time. And it's like this never-ending game, because, you know, you hit that and you chase the next thing, and then you hit that and you chase the next thing. And it's like, at the end of the day, Stellan Skarsgård's character finds Will and is helping Will out of the kindness of his heart, but it's a selfish act. Like, he's doing it for himself. And putting him together with Robin Williams' character, with Sean, you realize that the difference between these two characters is one cares about how Will impacts his life, and the other just wants Will to have the best life possible. And it's also this idea that comes up often in real life for us humans as well. It's this idea that, like, if you love someone or something so much, all you want is what's best for them, right? And if, you know, for example, you look at, for example, the perspective of, like, a relationship, right? That you love somebody, and then, you know, what's best for them is hypothetically, let's say, not being with you. Then, like, there's got to be enough love to go, like, okay, you need to do what's best for you, and I love you for wanting to do that. And you see that come through in a lot of Robin Williams' interactions with Will, where, you know, maybe not necessarily, like, love, because they don't really, like, know each other all that well, but there is this, like, profound appreciation and like, kind of intimacy between
Respect.
these two. Yeah, like grown men, essentially, who
Yeah.
just somehow, in a roundabout way, just are invested in each other having the best for themselves in a way that they don't even really know. You know, I don't think that Will, when he's asking questions like that to Sean, is coming from a place of, like, this question's going to get him pondering, and I hope he gets back out on the dating scene and grieves his wife properly and lives a happy life. Like, he's not thinking that, but the way that the brain acts subconsciously, it, like, that's the brilliance of this film, right? It's all subtext. It's all hidden in there, where you're like, this person, Will, isn't the person who should be acting like this or doing these kind of things, but somehow he does. Why?
Yeah. And going off of what you're saying, it's this concept of, like, you're watching Robin Williams, and he has those moments where he talks to Will about, you know, the idea of, like, again, it's that, as you're saying, it's having the love to be of someone to be able to not, again, we're even forgetting about the Minnie Driver character, who does such a great job at that, like, the girlfriend being the concept of talking to Will about being, like, you know, there's a classic plot point in this film that is used in a really interesting way of, typically, you know, the whole thing about, oh, Matt Damon lies that he has brothers. You know, he lies about the fact that he has that. And, you know, that comes up at some point where she's like, you know, I want to meet your brothers. And then later on in the film, you realize she's known that the brothers aren't a thing for a bit, but it's basically like calling him out, being like, he's like, what, have I not been truthful? What about your 10 brothers? And just kind of this whole thing there, and it's like, yeah,
Dude. And now that, dude, you're making me think, bro. And so when there's a line where he says, okay, what are the names? He's like, Jeggy, Market, Ricky, Dicky, he says all 10, and she goes, say it again.
and he does.
That's how thick of a wall he has up, is that he can say it again.
Yeah.
Dude,
And
that's crazy.
I think that one of the things that I've been exploring is like this concept of like, so this is wild, right? So I've been exploring this concept of like attachment styles as in like psychology, right? And it's about how different people and the way they were raised determines essentially how they love other people. And the idea is that you fall into a bunch of different categories. And these days, as I watch films, I'm like, ooh, I know what attachment style he has. And it's crazy that like Will as a character aligns so much with this like avoidant style, which is essentially like, somebody who does crave like intimacy and connection with people, but is so terrified by the vulnerability that brings from going, oh, if I let her in, she can hurt me, so I'm just going to keep the wall up all the time. That, again, obviously it makes for great drama, so like great work, psychologists, but
Yeah.
it's like through his sessions with Sean, it's him being able to overcome that and be able to look at the world as like a, I suppose like glass half full instead of glass half empty, if you want to simplify it so much. It's like, yeah, big love equals big pain, right? Because at the end of the day, if you love someone a lot, eventually, one of two things is going to happen, right? You're going to break up or they're going to pass away. Like either way, you're going to be sad. Like that's the crux of it all.
A morbid reality, yeah.
Exactly. But, and again, this is one of the lines that I think everybody always agrees with, but not necessarily in this film, but outside of it. And it's from WandaVision, like what is grief if not love persevering? And it's this concept that Will has to kind of wrap his head around, that like, you know what, this person might hurt me, but like, am I going to be grateful for the time that I got and being able to spend it with this beautiful, amazing person and be amazed by them and get to share life with them? Like that is huge.
And then to that point, like one of the things that I love about the Minnie Driver character is she easily could have been the, you lied to me, fuck you. She knows why he's doing it to a degree. Like she knows it's not because of like, he's deliberately trying to hurt her. It's like, you're clearly hiding something. What I need you to understand is I am here. I love you. And again, I love her line. She has a great line where she goes, you're afraid to love me because I may not love you back. But guess what? I'm afraid too. But fuck it, I want to give it a shot. Like she just has a great delivery on that, where it really goes down to the base level of taking that step. Yeah. Taking the step of fuck it, I want to try. And I love what this film does in that regard, because it really boils it down to, in my opinion, something that is relatable, is honest, and is truthful to kind of, I feel like, the human experience, right? Like where I feel like we all have that feeling of let my guard down and I want to try. I really want to try.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, as humans, we are all taught throughout our childhood and growing up, kind of subconsciously, to avoid pain or potential pain. Like your body knows when pain is coming and it prompts you to get away from that pain. And to kind of fight against that for the potential on the other side is like, it feels unnatural for a lot of people, particularly those that have had like a difficult like upbringing, like when you go the concept that the people that were meant to be the closest to me and love me unconditionally couldn't, so why is this random person that I met in a bar one night capable of doing that if my parents can't, right? That, like, this is what's going on in his brain, man. Like it's painful. Like how can you not like how can you not be heartbroken at that concept? It makes it really difficult, and it's the human condition. At the end of the day, it's what we're all working towards, is getting to that point where you can try.
And when you kind of realize that's what he's saying, and I think this film does a really good job when you do look at it from, and therapy being such a big part of this movie, it is one of those things of like, when you see that moment with him and him having this moment of pushing people away, and him, I mean, it all comes down to that it's not your fault scene, where it's that moment of what it really meant to Will to hear the words, "It's not your fault." And him, you just, and Matt Damon, like, that is a scene that, Joe, I feel like you could probably relate to this. I don't know if you feel this, but there are times when I'll write something and I'll be like, this can either be brilliant or shit. There's no in between. Like, this is like, there is this rides purely on being able to do this. Or like, and it's that moment of like, when you're watching Matt Damon do that scene and he starts off, he's like, oh yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. Like, what are you doing? And then as he continues to say it, it's like, you see him get angry for a second. He's like, no, don't you do it, Sean, not you.
It's that arrow. It's that piercing. Goes right
And
past
then-
all fucking guard.
And then he just lets it all out, and it's so authentic. Like, this is one of those things where I go, we forget sometimes like how good an actor Matt fucking Damon is. Like, when you see this movie, I'm like, this guy is so good. Like,
And then you watch The Great Wall.
Wall. He had some missteps, but like, you know, just like, and everybody has a bad day at the office, you know.
His was a bad
you
year
know?
at the office filming The Great Wall.
Fair enough. Yeah, for sure. But like, it's one of those things where you see that, and I think that is just such a brilliant addition in this movie, is like that moment and you're seeing it and the authenticity of it. And it hurts, it aches, but it's the right thing for that moment of the two of them. And fuck it, I love it. I love
you know,
it.
you know what's cool about that scene too is because that comes later later, you know, towards the end of the movie, because that is the scene where the walls are forced down. He lets them down. He lets everything out. But right before he does that too, he tries to kick him out. He tries to kick Will out, and for the first
He's
time,
given up,
he's like, dude, you ain't even trying. Get the fuck out. Is what he says to Will. And Will's like, dude, what are you doing? We're friends. That attachment style that you were talking about kicks back in, but this time it's not, you know, the attachment style pushing people away. He was trying to pull them closer, and so it's like without Robin, obviously, you know, in hindsight, obviously it's not possible. But in this scene specifically, there's a physical momentum that's pushing him, pushing those walls down, and you can see it when Robin just tries to kick him out. Like, dude, get out! You're wasting my time. He's like, what do you mean I'm wasting? For the first time, he doesn't want to let go.
And it's interesting
it's
that you
that
say
moment.
that because it triggers within him again that fear, right? Because essentially what's been happening is, if we talk about the way that attachment style works, right? He's there and he's not letting him in, and he's got his guard up. And of course, there's a piece of him that goes, I'm scared that even with this therapist, if I open up, you know, he's gonna fucking tear me to pieces or tell me what's what. Or like, he's terrified. But slowly through them sort of getting to that point, he has unwittingly like let Sean in, right? To the point where now he is actually unsafe with this person. And when that person pulls away, it's almost like activated out of going, fuck, I was right. This is why we don't let people in, because it hurts me. But obviously, his reaction to that is that sort of change. That shows that there's a little bit of growth there, where he's moved from this kind of avoidant stage to he's in like this disorganized part where he's got some anxiety around, now I'm connected to somebody and I don't want to lose them. It's like every single decision that he makes as a character for himself comes out of a place of fear for everything. He's just a terrified little baby boy.
Yeah, and with that, like going even further with it, like your point of these two guys just like having that attachment style, it's also, what is that scene about where he kicks him out? It's the whole thing is he asks him and he says this great line where he's just like, what do you want? You are bound by nothing. What do you want? Like, because he's also trying to get to the core of what, you know, Stellan Skarsgård is trying to, like, he's basically being like, listen, if you want the mathematics, I am going to support you. But I don't want to force you into a position of something that you don't want to do. I care about you. It's the same thing that Ben Affleck says to him later. Where it's like, bitch, I care about you. And it's like, it's the thing of, like, I'm your friend, asshole. Like, and you know, that's what it is. And him having that moment where, and then Will goes, you know, I want to be a shepherd. You know, I want to be a like, you know, and it's that whole thing of like, great. And then Robin Williams has a great line where it's like, listen, if you're gonna jerk off, why don't you do it at home with a moist towel? Like, and it's like, and it's just such a good line where it's just like, it's
that chess again. It's
yeah,
because he picks up on it. Will picks up on it, and I think that's when it starts kicking up too. Is that now he sees the moves? Now he sees the reality of the situation, given, you know, Robin Williams he's playing his game back at him. Nobody can compete on that level with him, except Robin. So I think that, you know, comes back to what you were saying, is that everything that Will had, Robin didn't. Everything that Rob had, Will didn't, and that's what, you know, what made it work.
And that's the with it, like you look at those, and what I love about this film, what I keep coming back to with it, is that moment, because even he says in that scene, and you really start to see Will reach this point in desperation. If you're talking about as a writer, what tactics is Will trying to use to get to the point? Will is trying to go, essentially go, you know, the whole fuck you, I don't want to get out of, I want to get out of here. But he starts going, what, like, you're gonna come over here and you're gonna talk about me? Look at you. He says, like, look at you, you fucking burnout.
Trojan horsed his ass.
Like, yeah. And he goes, exactly. And it's the whole thing of, look at you, you burnout. Like, you're trying to go over there, like, you know, what happened to your wife? Like, she's dead. It's like, yeah, she's dead. But you know, there's plenty of people out there that die, and a lot of them have the sack to ante up again. And he goes like, and it's that moment of, and he's like, well, at least I played a hand. And he goes, and you know, it's like, yeah, you played a hand and you lost that hand, but then there are people that will actually get the balls to go and ante up again and put the cards back out there. And then he
I'm
goes,
actually reading the
listen to
script
me.
as you say that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
and he has that.
Good work.
And he has that.
Pretty on point.
Oh, hey, listen, man. Like I said, can't remember my social security number, but I can remember this shit.
For scripts,
yeah, man.
not for numbers.
Man, listen, I fucking, I was terrible at math, but this shit, I got it in the can. Again, proving the point that ADHD people, it's not about we don't remember shit. We remember shit we care about. And it's but the thing is that what I love about that scene is that moment where he goes, listen to me, what do you want to do? See, there you go. You have a bullshit answer for everybody else. But when I ask you a very simple question, you can't give me a straight answer. And he just is like, and it's that moment of, Will has to think about it. And then the whole moment with Skylar happens.
Yeah.
And then he has the moment with Affleck. And then that's kind of what leads into, I think, the revelation in The Office, is kind of this moment of, it's all leading to this point of, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know this moment. And it's beautiful. And it's just so tragic, but it's also like, it has just this optimism to it of like, the film doesn't, I feel like the film doesn't at any point talk down to you.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't ever also downplay the subject matter it's talking about. It's like, no, Will was fucking stabbed. Like, Will is traumatized. Of course he would have this attitude. It's just, the film is so good at justifying every decision it makes.
Yeah.
And you know what? When you look back at it, you know, going off what you said, you don't need a character to do that. You don't need a character to shame that or downplay any of that. Every single character in this movie was kind of taking Will from one point to the next.
Yeah.
Friend, girlfriend, Robin, the professor. You don't need to do that. You don't need to shit more on him, because, you know, it's naturally played out. You know, all the way through. So it's funny you see
he does enough to himself, like, you know. And that's the funny thing about it too, is everybody, and what I love about this film is everybody has a purpose and everybody has a point. Like, Stellan Skarsgård is to his own degree right about, yeah, this guy is directionless and this guy is brilliant. It would be a real shame if the world did not benefit from what this guy has to offer the world. I can't do it. Other people can't do it, but this guy could.
Yeah,
What
the problem is, yeah, he tried to coerce that, and I think naturally that's what creates a great field of play.
It's like everyone is a little bit right, and you're kind of like, oh, where are we at? But I think that's something that's really interesting about the way that you explain that 2K is this idea that Stellan Skarsgård is looking at this kid and going like, like he could do a lot for the world, but he looks at what can this guy do for the world from like my point of view as opposed to like Will's. At the end of the day, sometimes all you need to put out into the universe and the world is just love. Like, I guess, like it's like if that's where he makes the big impact on the world, like his impact on the world is how much he improves Skylar's life by them having the chance to be together. It's like that's enough. Like, you are enough as is. You don't have to be doing more than just what makes you happy.
Well, yeah, and it's kind of even the concept of with his friends, right? Like, or going back to the Affleck scene, which I think is the best explanation of this thing is it's like, listen, and I think Affleck's intention is, yes, he does bring up the science stuff, being like, no, bitch, you don't owe it to yourself, you owe it to me. And it's like, because I would do anything to have what you got. And the thing I think that he really means by that is, bitch, I don't care if you do this stuff. All I want you to do is use what you got.
Yeah.
Like, don't be afraid to do it. If you choose to do it, that's a different story. But if you're afraid to do it, that's the thing I got a problem with. And that's what I feel like that, because I feel like if he chose to stay there and like stay in town, but he put his smarts to good use, Ben Affleck would have no fucking problem with that. The problem he has is that his friend continuously throws away the gifts that he has. It's the idea of the thing of like, Joey, there's a couple of people like we went to college with where I'm like, I love them as creators, and it's like when I see them use that gift, I'm like, man, I don't care if you do that for TikTok, you do that for this stuff. If you're creating, you're just giving to the world the stuff that you have. What I got a problem with is if you're afraid to succeed, because you will.
Yeah.
Like, if you're afraid to put yourself out there and take risks, I got a problem with that. Like, that's where, like, me as a person, yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I was just going to add to that as well, Kate, without the intention of cutting you off, just this idea that, like, even now, 20 years later almost? 15 years past this film coming out? No. What is it, 1998 to 2023? So it's, 25 years after this film came out.
Damn.
Like, that still rings so true that each one of even us three, I'm sure, have felt that at some point. This idea that, like, yeah, cool, like, there's stuff that you probably can do, but almost for fear of achieving, you don't do it. Like, what if it does work out? Like, why are you scared of the good stuff?
Yeah.
It's like, it's the idea, you will fail along the way, but eventually it'll happen. If you stick to it. Like, time is your ally, essentially.
I have a question for both of you. How much of it would you think is fear, and how much of it do you think is laziness?
I think it's all fear.
All fear, no laziness, all fear.
I think that
in the case of Good Will Hunting.
I think that it's like,
sure,
it's something that's viewed as laziness because somebody goes, why wouldn't you if you can, right? That's the question. And that's right. So when we ask that question, what is the answer? Is it because I'm lazy? Or is there something else deeper at play? You've got somebody who's so smart, but his entire life somehow, even though he's been around people that have been, what's the word? Like, pushing him forward and telling him, like, I want you to be better, all this kind of stuff. He's found that, like, the only way that he sees his value for himself is within, his friend group and basically his hard exterior shell, his persona there. He doesn't see that in his capacity or his potential. And so when I start to really ask the question of why wouldn't he? I think that there's a comfort that exists in the life that he has now, where he feels like, why change if changing is scary and could potentially go the wrong way, when I can just stay right now where I'm comfortable and I don't necessarily have any issues. Things aren't perfect, but my life is fine. I don't care. He's kind of reserved to that. That's my take anyway.
Yeah, and I don't. I think that you're pretty much on the money. I think it also depends on what field we're talking about. I think with mathematics, like if we're talking about the mathematics portion, I think it echoes to two scenes. One scene with Skylar, where Skylar is like they're sitting out at like a park bench or something like that. They're sitting out like they're getting coffee or something like that, basically doing a date while she's got to study, and she's doing like her work, and he's like, "Do you need help with that? Like, do you need help with that?" And she's like, "No, it's actually important that I learn this, like, because this is actually really fucking hard for people." And then basically she questions him. She's like, "Do you have a photographic memory?" And he's like, "No, I just," and basically he tries to explain it, which I think is the best explanation of creativity. And also I think it's also great to the point of, Naf, you brought up the concept of like neurospicy and things like that. I think it's the concept of hyperfixation, right? Where he talks about how you play the piano, right? And she's like, and he's like, "I'm trying to explain it to you. When Beethoven looked at the piano, he saw things, he saw music, he saw this, and he could play. When I look at a piano, I see a box of wood. I don't know how to play. But with mathematics, with this shit, I could just play." And I think that that's kind of, to me, I think that when it comes to mathematics, I don't know if it's even fear. I think it's a thing of, he finds it almost like a hobby. Like it's kind of the thing of, you're great at, but you don't want to make it a career because you enjoy it too much to make it a career almost.
I like that. Yeah.
Like, and I feel like, to your point about him advancing as a person, for sure it's all fear.
I want to add one extra layer to that as well, actually.
Okay, please.
It's just, as you were saying it, I was recognizing that, like, I feel like Will has a lot of that, but there's also, like, this is kind of like how he gets back at the world. Like, he's angry at the world for the life that he's had so far and how difficult it's been for him. And so there's almost like this subconscious feeling of, I could do X, Y, Z and make the world a better place, but, like, fuck you, world. You don't deserve me. You've given me shit this whole time. And so it's like this what's the word? How he basically has removed himself from that situation is him clapping back at the universe and being like, fuck you. I didn't deserve this, and I baited out the other side myself, and now you don't deserve what I was able to do for myself because you didn't do anything for me. And I think that is another huge element of his pain.
What do you think? What do you think, Joe? Like, I'm curious to know your thoughts on it as well.
In terms of fear?
Yeah, like, do you think that, like, it's more fear, or do you think that it is more like,
just what are the driving factors for Will, do you feel?
Well, I feel often laziness is more just, you're not interested.
The reason I asked it was because you had said they don't downplay his situation at all. And I think if they would have brought in the lazy conversation, it would have downplayed the situation.
Yes.
And so that's kind of where my question came from, was if you guys even saw that at all. And so it didn't. You guys didn't. You didn't see that at all, which goes to show the script, the acting, the story was so well driven in that direction of fear. Fear was the novelty, that there was no reason to. It just kind of goes back to our point that there was no reason to downplay. As far as what I think, all fear driven. I don't think there was laziness. I think there was maybe instances where you could play the lazy card, but they were so minute to the overall story that it just didn't make sense.
I think
but go ahead.
I was just gonna say that on that point, that it's like it almost seems like laziness is less of like the driver, I suppose, and more of like the side effect. It's like because of the anger and the fear, then it presents as laziness, which again, like we were talking before, with a lot of people who are neurodiverse as well, this is a really common thing that they're told through high school, like, you're lazy, you're not this, you're not that, you're not the other. Like through life, it's people that can't like, I suppose, function in the way that society expects them to. It doesn't necessarily come from like a bad character flaw. It's like there's something deeper at play here. And so, yeah, I think that that's the key differentiator, that it's like, I don't know if the question is right in terms of, is it fear or is it laziness? It's like, it's laziness because of fear and laziness because of angry. Like it's the side effects, I think.
Yeah,
It's
well,
like
going
symptoms, yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, but like even going further with that point, Naf, what is one of the scenes that I think you can argue that point the best, which is the scene where which is also one of the funniest scenes in the film, sending Affleck to do his interview that
brilliant.
one time in the film, when it's like, nah, I didn't say that. What I'm saying is that your offer would be a lot better received if I had $200 in my pocket right now. Like, you know, like just kind of a thing there. But I think that when you look at that scene, what is the truth behind it? The truth is Damon didn't really want the job. The truth is Damon didn't want that, whether that's out of fear, out of a general, this isn't what I want to do, that's up for debate. But the symptom is that, like, it will be seen as you're lazy for, like, I think even Stellan Skarsgård may have even said that, like, being like, you show up, it makes me look bad. And also, it has consequence. So it's a thing of being like, you make me look bad, you do that. And he's like, I'm sorry, I had something, I couldn't get around with it. Like, the commute is there. And I think the point is, you see with Will, even before he goes and meets with Robin, you see him just flipping through the book. And you see him like basically doing like the speed read of the book. So it's like he put in the work. He went and fucking saw out that book. And he did that. So it's not laziness, because he clearly is putting in the work. But it's more like he won't put in the work where he has, I think, a fear of failure.
Yeah.
To a degree. Or like a fear of abandonment or things like that.
And a fear of success and the pressure that comes from having to maintain the success, like it,
which are all the motives that we've picked up on throughout the film anyway.
I think that is the mark of what makes this film such a brilliant work of art. That in pulling apart, not even like scenes, but like the vibe of the characters, we can go for an hour and a half and talk in deep. And Kenny called it out in chat as well, which I want to call out as well because it's really great feedback. But he says that this is getting really deep. Holy crap, great podcast, guys. And it's listen. Like, yeah, the reality is you couldn't do that without a script or a story that calls for it, without characters. Which is what I was gonna this deep. Yeah. Go, Joey.
Are they thinking about that shit when they're writing? Because
they have to.
I think that
how
do
you even come up with that shit?
The thing that me and Keegan always come back to, which I think is beautiful, is this concept of if you think it's that deep, then it's that deep. It's as deep as you want it to be. If it's surface level for you, and he's lazy, then beautiful. He's lazy. If it's like deeper to the point where it teaches you things about your core beliefs about yourself, like, okay, we watched this movie at a point in my life where I was going through transition, and this has been like insane for me, like huge learning coming out the other side of me going like, I relate to this character so much, so many aspects of his life that it's driven me outside of the film to make like change
adjustments
and learn from
action.
it. Which, like, how often does that happen? And
Not
Kenny says this
enough.
is why we need to pay the writers and actors.
My point exactly. Like, you know what I mean? Like the point is that, like, when you watch a film like this, everything seems to be thought about. At the very least, they lure you into a false assumption. If, let's say, it wasn't, like, they lured you in with enough of an assumption that they paid attention to it.
Yeah.
That basically, I assume every point in this was made by choice. Like, I know that some of the stuff was improv or things like that. Joey, we've worked on enough film sets to know that not everything was thought about, probably, but at least in the writing of this film, everything is there. It's like a play. You're not relying on these amazing set pieces. You're relying on the story. You're relying on the narrative, the characters. All of this is consistent. Each theme, each character is about this idea of, you know, Skylar has a past. Her father died, and she has that thing of, like, Will coming from nothing, always assuming that, like, oh, this person that comes from money is doing this. And she's like, bitch, don't you think that I would get, like, you, what is your obsession with this money? Don't you think that what I would give to have one more day, I would give up all of this to have one more day with my dad. And I mean, like, I fucking relate to that. where I'm like with my mom dying, I'm like, listen, I have a moment of looking at that film and I listen to that line and it's like, yeah, did I get some inheritance money out of it? Yeah, but I lost a parent for the rest of my life. You know what I mean? Like all the times that people are going to have that, I won't. And it's a thing of like, you look at those moments in this film, her character, even just having a little bit of that, it took the writers to think of that. That's not improv. It took writers to actually put that part on paper, to be able to go, we got to think through this character. We got to think through why she is the way that she is. And how does that relate to the overall theme of the story? She is pushing forward with her dreams. She has a want. She has a desire.
Yeah.
It's Will that comes in and she is willing to do the, I got to see about a girl. She's doing that with him. She is doing that whole thing of, I got to see about this guy. Like, she didn't have to go up to him after that whole scene in the bar, but she did.
Yeah.
And she is almost doing everything that Robin Williams is saying Will should do. But she's almost that kind of lens, and she's like the what are you so afraid of? And she's willing to meet him even where like he's not willing to go himself.
Willing.
And like, you know, in a beautiful way of basically saying, I know you lied to me, but here's the thing, I fucking love you.
And
I don't give a shit.
I understand why. And it's funny that like where we dive into the conversation around like, you know, let's look at like their, for example, attachment styles and things, right? Like she's a lot more secure than he is. And often what comes up these days is people will say that if you have an insecure attachment style and you come across somebody that has a secure one, that will actually trigger you more because it's so uncomfortable to have somebody so emotionally available, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
So like it must be terrifying for him. And it's I think that to your point around like were they thinking this, you know, like these concepts that we're talking about now are things that are more like recent psychology, not like 90s psychology. But it's like it's designed to give a name and explanation to things that were part of the human experience like forever. And so it just goes to show that like these guys are looking at this and writing this through a lens of maybe they're not sitting there going like, man, I'm going to write a fantastic story about somebody overcoming their attachment style issues. But just going, this is what it's like to be human. And then it comes across in a way that is, like I said, really profound and deep and has so many layers to it because it's real. That's what it is. The film feels real. It doesn't feel faked, which, like we were saying, a story like this about a damaged kid trying to be who's a genius that doesn't want to work could come across fake. Like, you know, you made that again now, it probably wouldn't resonate the same way.
It's really odd that way where, like, as you just said, yeah, the premise of this film could easily be put off as, oh my God, boo-hoo, this guy is a genius and no one sees it. Like, you know, like, it easily could come off that way, but it's not.
Yeah.
This film is, I would argue, just as relevant today as it was when it came out, if not more so.
Well, yeah, I'd agree.
That like the nuances of this are so ahead of its time.
Yeah.
That it lends itself to these in-depth discussions.
Yeah.
And it also goes, and you know, this is the thing about that period in history, like that period of the 90s in film. It's similar to the 70s. I would argue we're still experiencing this now. The thing is, this was when different voices were starting to be able to do indie shit. Voices were able to come out of the ether because access was opening. It wasn't where people weren't cornering the market. It was, you were starting to see avenues where different voices that before would never have been seen are now starting to actually come about. At this time, that was where you got Spike Lee, you got Tarantino, you got Paul Thomas Anderson, you got again, you got fucking like Damon and Affleck here. And you're getting all of these stories, and then nowadays, Joey, we could go and grab Alex and people and go and rent some equipment, and we could make a feature tomorrow. Like, that is how cool filmmaking has gotten. Is that you don't have to go and film this on film. You can, again, Tangerine, people like that. Like, you can go and take your iPhone and go and film something. The cool thing about the making of this film is it continues to prove story is king, writing is king. This film, it's not the best shot film ever. Its cinematography is very good and very simple and very effective, very natural. But it doesn't have to be Roger Deakins 1917 to be good. The story is what fucking rules about this movie, and the execution of that. And that's my key with anything, is I'm like, that is what will save you at the end of the day. You can have bad effects. You can have things like that. You can have bad shit like that. But if you have a good story, that's what people will walk away with.
Here. Hey, man.
You know what I mean?
Way to put a bow tie on that.
Yeah.
You cleaned that up nice.
Yeah, like we've covered the majority of the film, like through here, which is great. And it's like we said, obviously a fantastic film to bring along with you too, Joey. Like a incredible watch for me for the first time. And again, something that even post talking about this, I go, God damn it, I'm gonna watch it again like tomorrow. I do movie nights with my friends at my house every Monday, and I'm like, maybe I just put on Good Will Hunting. Maybe we just do that.
Yeah, just to make like kill two birds with one stone in that regard.
Yeah,
Great.
Absolutely. But as we look to maybe wrap up a little bit, do you guys have any
Absolutely.
like, final thoughts? Like Joey, anything you want to tell us?
No, dude, it fucking, like I said at the beginning, one of the, in my situation, finding people who can, one, watch the films with me, right? But two, actually, go into those conversations and explore some of those concepts, so those themes, those ideologies, that's very rare to find where I'm at, here in person. So, just to thank you for having me on and, letting me listen to how you guys think about this shit. And it obviously is important to you. And so it's important to me too. And so, that connection is made. So yeah, thanks for having me. I felt like an audience member listening to you two, even though I'm on the show. I'm right there, so it's very interesting. And I'm on the Darth Man 86. I'm with him, dude. I can't wait, to watch another one of these with, some of the, hopefully, some more films that I like come up. But yeah. Dude, this was entertaining as hell.
Awesome,
man.
Well, we really appreciate having you on, and obviously as an audience member, and also to be able to have your point of view here too, right? Like I guess that's the difficult thing about a film podcast, is this idea that like, man, all of us are in the same wavelength, and we all love talking about it so much that it's so easy to bounce back and forth. And that's why we do this at the end of the day, because it's like, I think exactly what you're feeling is my life here. Like I have friends that I do movie nights with on Monday, but they don't necessarily want to sit and talk about it for an hour and a half after it's done. Like it's just kind of like, oh, cool, we watched the movie. We're gonna go home now. That was good.
Yeah, let's move on.
So that's where like Kay and I connected really well as well. Is this idea that like he was saying that he loves doing this and his like partner loves movies as well, but at the same time maybe that doesn't want to talk about it as in depth as you do. So he'll finish a movie and then he'll call me and we've got it. It's like, yes, bro, I'm wired in.
Yeah, I want to talk about the philosophy of this. I want to talk about the contrasting ideals of these two characters. Let's talk about how they compare and contrast as we go through this thing. It's like, Keegan, it was just a Marvel movie. We don't have to talk about it like this. Like,
they don't. Something I've realized is, with us, we like to know how and why it works. And they're just there. A lot of people are, and that's the industry, there to be entertained, right? It's the entertainment industry, but there's just something about knowing how it works, why it works, and when it works that kind of just, gives me a hard on for film, dude.
Yeah.
I
agree. How it's built.
That's the mentality that drives me through so much of this as well. And even the mentality that was able to get me like into like horror films last year for the first time, where I was like, I'll never do it. I can't do it. It made me so uncomfortable. And then somehow there was this switch that flipped where I was just kind of like, I feel like if I'm so scared of horror films, maybe I could like make a really good one. So maybe I could just watch it with the intent of learning how I could make a good horror film, and watching things and just like, I don't know, somehow it's like, it's not as scary to me anymore because I'm watching it. I'm like, what are they doing? Like, oh, I can see what they're doing here. This is cheeky. Like I can feel that. Yeah, it just is. It's great. It's so wonderful to experience.
When we get to like September, October, you and I are gonna have to do that, because then we'll just be the two. Yeah, we got to do that, because I'm on your same wavelength there of the issues there.
Face.
Oh, there we go. Joey's back though. I see.
Yeah, you're good.
Yep, you're good. You're back now. Okay. There we go. But to your point, like, one of the things that I was asked by somebody at some point, being like, now that you work in film, does it ruin it for you? Like, does that ruin it? And I say no, because the way I put it is you go from being an audience member at a magic show to being a magician at a good magic show, where it's like the idea is that you get a different type of enjoyment out of it. When a magician is able to fool another magician, you have so much respect for that, because you're like, how the fuck did you do that?
Yeah.
That's why you need to have the crew. You need to have the people. You need to be surrounded by the people.
Absolutely. And it takes everybody. It takes everybody being creative. Again, Gus Van Sant doing this film as the director, he could have done stuff that was a lot more invasive with the directing, instead of how I felt like he did it, which was, I just want to let this play out. I just want to like, that's why the shots are very much long takes. It's about letting us live and breathe with these actors. It was more like a play than it was a film, but it was still engaging, and it was still right, and it was still dynamic, but it was like you really felt lived in. And but as you're saying, Joey, it takes all kinds, and that's the thing. It's like that I feel people will neglect, and it's why these people deserve to make a fair wage. These are the why, like, writers, actors. IATSE did their contract a while ago, where it's like the crew members are doing that whole thing too. It's like, listen, everybody's important. Everybody contributes to the magic. And when you get a film like this, it is not just because of the writers. It's not just because of the actors. It's everybody involved. And it's an incredible team. And that's why this shit is awesome. And when it actually works, when you realize how hard it is to make a good movie, you get a moment.
Even a bad movie.
Exactly.
It's a miracle that anything gets put
Just
to
the first
screen
step,
ever.
man. The first step.
The first step is actually making a movie. Whether it's good or not, that's up to that. I don't know. But like, you know, just sort of like, it's insane. And that's why when I really love calling out when we have shit like this, because it's beautiful and it's worth celebrating, and it's worth talking about it for like an hour 30. Yeah. It's worth doing it because it deserves it.
Yeah.
And yeah, but that's my 2 cents. Naf, do you have anything kind of wrapping up? Any thoughts on the final thoughts on this film?
No, I think I've gotten like most of my verbal diarrhea out, which was lovely. So thank you for paying attention. But you guys can find our episodes available to listen on Spotify, Apple Music, or anywhere else you get your podcasts. Obviously on demand. You can follow One with the Films on YouTube and subscribe to us so you can see any other content that's coming out besides just the live stuff. And then we're available across TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram as well. So you can follow us there and get a bit of a vibe for what's happening in our world right now. And we've got a few more episodes coming up over the next few weeks, which we're really excited about. Did we lock in next week's, Kay? Like, do you want to announce that now? Or?
Yes. Like we'll kind of say, like, right now, next week. Right now we're set up with we're doing Devil's Advocate with Kari, a Star Wars Tia. Right now that's kind of the plan, but the film may change, but right now that's the plan. But yeah, that's kind of there. And now, Joey, obviously you got a lot going on. Tell the people what you're working on, kind of what they can expect from you with the follow and everything there, so people can send them your way.
I appreciate that. Yeah, if you guys want to learn how to use Adobe Premiere Pro, you can follow my TikTok, Joey Arteblanco. But other than that, no, you just keep a lookout. I'll be there.
Absolutely. And obviously Joey's an incredible filmmaker. Try to look up some of his shorts wherever they're available. Joey is a great incredible filmmaker. Like, I loved getting a chance to work on some of your films and getting a chance to do that there. And so, like, if you guys are ever looking for a little bit of just some entertaining shorts, definitely look up some of stuff. Is the Pit available online now, or is it?
Yeah, it's on YouTube. If you go check my YouTube channel, Joey D, or I think I changed it to Shut Up and Cut now. You could check.
So it's on your channel.
Pit. Yep, and you could check out Fight too.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, those two films especially. I love The Pit. The Pit is great. Fight is awesome as well. Definitely recommend guys checking out Joey's stuff. Just support him. He's incredible. Again, as Naf said, can attest that he actually has listened to Joey's videos to learn how to edit and doing all that stuff. Yeah. And Joey's just an awesome follow on TikTok as well as everything else. And they can all find you at shutupandcut_, or like, where can people find you?
Yeah, you could find me on TikTok, Joey Arteblanco, and then you could find me on YouTube at Joey D or Shut Up and Cut _ Yep.
Perfect. And we are One with the Films. Naf, where can people find you?
You can find me at On Second Thought across anywhere. Best place is Instagram because that's the normal one, and then you can use the links to find me anywhere else. But I'm on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all the fun places as well. Yeah, so come hang out. It'll be sick.
Absolutely. And then I am Movie Caveman the Third. I am Movie Man Opinions. You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Threads, everywhere with that. And then also just here, I have several different reviews up on the channel. If you want to watch my Batman one, you want to watch my Tick Tick Boom. Working on a couple more, but obviously with the strike, I'm kind of refraining from doing some of those right now. But I will be posting a lot more about my D&D things. In fact, Naf and I actually have a thing that we're going to be doing later on in August, probably towards the end of August. We will be doing a big one shot with using my system as well as my world. He will be in it, such as friends of the channel, Spooky Bree, Eliana, as well as Elizabeth, as well as Kit, A Merrier Place. We'll all be doing a big one shot, so we're working on that. More details to come. And guys, again, thank you for joining us. If you guys have a film that you want to recommend us doing, if you like hearing us talk about all this stuff, please just comment down below, share, subscribe. Also, listen to us on Spotify, rate us. It helps us do well with the algorithm. Do all the things that you know what to do. And as always, as my friend Raglan says, clear water brings both pleasure and pain.
Okay. Noted.